Welcome, everybody, to Sally Speaks Mindset. I am Sally Arkell Bowles, and I am a high performance coach working with human performance as well as mindset to help you to break through those barriers that you're having to success and to get you to that next level of success. And I have this podcast because I really wanted to bring the most amazing guests to you that can share their success strategies and inspire and motivate you to take those next steps in your life and in your journey to be able to create the life of your dreams. And today I am so blessed and excited to have Natasha Goyette join us. And she has an incredible story. She's a wonderful woman. She's actually got her PhD, and she is a content coach and a consultant, which helps creators, entrepreneurs, and scholars share their story in a way that builds their authority and creates community. And it's really important to have people to be able to understand what it takes to actually have success and to show up as the person you truly are. And so I think that that's really where Natasha brings her expertise in. She's a French expat. I can see her kitty's tail in the background. Mine did that yesterday on a Zoom that I was recording. And she lives in Virginia with her husband, and she has 3 cats. And she's got some amazing news that she shared with me today. I'll let her decide if she wants to share that. So welcome, Natasha. I'm really, really excited about our conversation today because we've had a few conversations and we've been following each other and know each other fairly well. And I'm excited to hear today that you've officially launched your business as of last week. However, I know you've been working on your business for quite some time. So tell us a little bit about how that journey has felt.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on today, Sally. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And also, I apologize in advance because I think I have a cat that's going to be right in front of the screen.
That's okay.
At least a tail.
Real life.
Yeah, real life, 3 cats. No, oh, I put the camera at the right spot, apparently, today. We didn't see him. But no, yeah, thank you so much. It's a joy to be here. And thank you for my new business. It's been in the making since February, I would say, but my original idea was different from where I pivoted to with content coaching and consulting, and it's exciting. It really is exciting. It feels like the right thing. I was not planning to start working for myself for maybe a few more years, and I eventually left corporate earlier than I thought this February. And then I was just like, you know what, with different projects I had, I think it's the good time to go for it.
Excellent. I did a similar thing 3 years ago where I wasn't really thinking about leaving corporate, but then all of a sudden the inspiration came to me like, this is my time. This is my time to make the change and to step into what I want to create for my life. And I know that that's part of your mission as well, is how can you change people's lives to really have them grow into what they can, I'll call it blossom into something that's just so beautiful for themselves that they can create that. So tell us a little bit, because you're highly educated, you got a PhD. What's your PhD in?
My PhD is in Arts and Humanities from UT Dallas in Texas, which was why I originally moved to the States in 2016. And my major was in visual arts, especially my background was originally in film studies and creative writing and media studies altogether. I would say I'm really a media studies scholar. And my minor was technically in history of ideas, which is a really nice way to say philosophy, really. So that's what I worked on. And I did my dissertation on Dana Scully from the X-Files.
Right, I remember that. We used to watch that all the time. And I got to say, a lot of people really enjoyed Scully and how she was thinking throughout that whole process. So that's cool. So now what made you decide to take this business on? So tell us a little bit about your journey into the business side and what inspired you to create this business the way that you did?
I think it was, I would say almost threefold, and then watch me in 2 minutes say it was fourfold or twofold. I'm fairly sure I didn't go into math. There are reasons. So after finishing my PhD, I originally felt that I didn't want to stay in academia, even though I have a lot of love for learning and higher education. So I went corporate, and I'm a strong writer, a strong communicator. So I went into content management and customer experience content and campaign management. So that's where I also learned a lot more about content strategy and how to make it work at different levels. whether it is corporate level or even individual levels, because there was individual strategies, you used as a content manager to juggle different projects. And I originally thought that when I was going to start my own business, I would stick around like copywriting or content management, but I kept feeling there was something not aligning, because I was still really interested in helping grad students, because in addition to my PhD, I also have 2 masters. So I've done grad school in 3 different countries. So I have a lot of understanding of how you need to be more independent, or how you need to jump through a lot of different hoops. Yes. So I'm really passionate about that. And I wasn't sure it would blend with the copywriting. And at some point, a friend of mine who is a gaming streamer was asking me, oh, would you help me with my content strategy? And I want to launch my YouTube channel. He remembered my very tiny YouTube channel that I had several years ago, but he really loved it. And I was like, okay, sure, that sounds fun. If I can help you. And that's where I suddenly had the idea of being like, hang on, I love content strategy, but I've also always loved mentoring people, and really not just holding their hand, but teaching them how to do things. And that was the light bulb moment. That was like, content coaching and consulting makes the most sense. And within 30 minutes, I had like my elevator pitch. I kind of could start to have the idea, cat number 2. I started to have the idea of the type of offerings I would have and the people I would help. So that's kind of when the cards fell into place. And I realized also that technically I said no to coaching over the years. And because at some point I remember I wanted to go into story consulting and stuff like that. And I'm like, I think it's finally catching up with me. And maybe this time actually I should go for it. And it's really felt right since then.
Yes. I love that, because the intuition that and the ideas that come to us for a reason. So it usually is from a feeling within us that it's like, this just feels so right, feels so good, feels like it's the right time. And I loved what you said about within 40 minutes. You said, I had written down a plan on what I was going to do, my elevator pitch on how I was going to start with talking to people and showing up for people. So I love that, because most people, when an idea will come to them, they'll struggle to actually take the action to move forward, and they'll question it. So how have you developed your mindset so that when something like that happens for you, you're able to make a quick decision? How have you created that? Because that's a sort of a secret that a lot of people don't know how to create.
That's a really good question, and one that I didn't really think about. I think it was a lot of building blocks over time, because I'm the first to say that I've not always been the best to listen to my intuition, but I think that's part of the human experience. I think part of it was the fact that that takes me back 20 plus years ago, end of high school, when I was literature top of the class student. Many people were like, oh, you should go into literature studies or business school or whatever, because I'm really, really organized. And I wanted to go to film school, because in France, we don't just have university, we have a lot of different types of higher education options. And most people were just like, what are you thinking? Thankfully, my parents were okay with that, but I was fascinated with filmmaking and storytelling and understanding like all the behind the scenes. So that's one of the first time I would say I knew deep inside of me it was the right thing. I didn't know where I would go from there, but I felt that I needed to have that more pragmatic approach and pragmatic learning before going to university, which I obviously did. So I think that was a really strong first step in being like, I'm going to go where I feel I should go. And then there's the ebb and flow where I really thought I was going to stay teaching for a long time. And I realized that it was not higher ed in itself was not the right setting for me. But at the same time, also when I think the listening to the intuition part, it's really not just in the mind, but really in the body. I think it's the combination of feeling like a weight is dropping off of your shoulder, but you can still have a knot in your stomach and be like, what the hell am I thinking? I think it's kind of both, because I know for some people it's one or the other, but for me, it's usually both in like, I think I'm onto something. And it's kind of this deeper knowing that
Yes.
comes with experience as well, and also understanding when we went. I don't want to say where we went wrong per se, because I think there's a learning experience everywhere to be acquired, but like, okay, that didn't feel right for me. Like I learned a lot from my last corporate experience, but it was really not the right fit for me. And I felt that on a physical level with exhaustion and other things, and like how I was doing well. It's just that it was really not the right fit mentally or even physically at this point for me. And it's like, then explore, and how does it feel even deep in your body? I think that it's really like the collaboration between the mind and body. And I also like the idea that if you really suddenly have the idea and almost right after you try to talk yourself out of it or find all the reason why you shouldn't go into that, there's a probability that you're onto something. If your immediate reaction is like, oh, I love it, and then hang on, let's go through the laundry list of why this might not be a good idea. I'm a planner. I'm like going to write down all the list, but at the same time, I think that learning to realize and recognize that that intuition is also, if you really try to talk yourself out of it after an immediate, strong positive reaction, you're probably trying to tell yourself this is not a good idea, and you really want to dig deeper then.
Yeah, I think it's I equate it sometimes to planning a vacation. So you can plan and plan and plan, but until you actually book that trip, that's when the excitement comes in. That's when you know you're making the right move, and then you've got that growth to like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. What are we going to achieve? Let's talk about what we're going to do. And even on the plane ride, you just get that excitement inside of you because you know it's the right thing for you at that time, and you're excited to land and experience whatever's awaiting for you. So the same thing applies in business and life, and every decision that we make really is, what's my intuition and when am I going to take that action? Because oftentimes we let our fears overtake us and prevent us from taking that action. And so when you're able to understand that if it feels right and it feels good, take the action and move forward with it. And there's going to be things that come up along the way that sort of sidetrack you, but are you willing to hold your course to get there? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, from my experience, it's not an easy journey. We're used to working in corporations or with businesses that have a marketing team, that have a sales team, that have, specific duties that we're expected to do in our day, no matter what our job is. There are people coaching us and leading us. But when we step out into entrepreneur, we don't have any of that. And so we have to develop those skills or hire people to do those things for us over time. But usually money's not as fluid when we're starting out. And so when we do that, what it does is it allows us to have to get over certain barriers and have to learn different skills and have to have different growth. But with that becomes power, and it becomes your strength and your belief in yourself that you can achieve. And all too often people quit just before they're about to succeed because they've put in the time and they're not getting the results and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important what you brought up is like to write down those fears, but don't own those fears, right? Make sure that you're going with how you're really feeling about the excitement of it. It's good to have the pros and cons down. I get that kind of thing. People do that. I like to look at the pros, but the cons are always going to show up that are going to be those fears that I bring in that don't have to exist. And I like that you brought that up because it can really stop people in their tracks. So for you to say, I thought about it and I knew it was right. But I'm a planner. I look at things and I want to check both sides of the page and see if I'm making the right decision. But I can tell from, I think I met you before that time. I believe I did early in the year or around the time that you were deciding to go into this business. And so, the fact that you're now showing up with the joy and the excitement of actually doing the do and doing the business, I can see that complete difference in how you're showing up, which is really fun.
And I feel so different as well. This is really a big thing. And I really like what you said, that both fears are going to show up anyway. And I think that another thing that is important that is recognized when we do have a certain privilege. Like I know I was able to pursue that as well, even if I didn't have, that much money to invest right now. It's like, I have the privilege with my husband, since I'm married, as a solid situation. So that was also something that I recognized helped me move there, because the bills were still covered. So that was an opportunity for me to really go into that.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people may, need to stay with their 9 to 5 while they're starting to build their business. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, before I decided to go into coaching, I was like, oh, I'm still going to look for a corporate job, even though I'm building my business. And at some point, I did realize that I really didn't want to go back to corporate, and I really wanted to give it my all to that entrepreneurship journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, there's also the understanding that the faster you launch and the more time you put into it, the faster you're going to start becoming profitable. Right. And at the end of the day, we're in this to turn a profit. But also the joy that you get in serving your clients and creating something with them and bringing your creative skills forward really can make a difference to their success. And when they identify that, that can be huge for them as far as shortening that time to success as well. So tell me a little bit about some of your experiences with your clients and what type of results they're getting. So you're working with some people now.
Yeah, I'm mostly working with one person now. I'm also technically, I'm working with 2 people right now. One of them, so he's my friend, was a Twitch gaming streamer. And so we're starting working on his YouTube channel. That was non-existent when we tackled it. It was like he said himself, there was nothing. He didn't really know where to start. So we sat down, we talked about what he was doing, what he hoped to achieve, and what type. One of my big things when working with clients is what is sustainable for you in terms of strategy, in terms of system, because we all want to hit the ground running, but if we burn ourselves to the ground within 2 weeks, 2 months, then we cannot keep growing, because we're just going to be exhausted and risk of going back to square one, which we don't want.
Yeah.
So it's been slow growth, because it's always when you start a YouTube channel, especially like kind of finding his footing, and since he's into the gaming, the gaming genre, there can be he was still figuring out which game he wanted to focus on, and sometimes game break, so to speak. So it was kind of figuring that out. He's been continually building his Twitch following as well, because I also help him overall with the branding, his personal branding, and how to really position himself. So there's been steady growth. We're still working on it and fine-tuning the direction, but
it doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And that's something that you really understood as well from the get-go. So that was helpful for us to move forward and, experiment with certain things, because when you're really in the beginning, it's also a good time to experiment a little bit and see what sticks. You don't just want to throw spaghetti to the wall, but there's a little element of experimentation regardless when you're really at the very beginning. And so there are some slow but steady growth. So this is really exciting to see. And the other person I'm helping is actually a local friend I recently met, who is a fellow coach, and she is working on designing, kind of like rethinking exactly what she wants her niche to be, and how to kind of build her online presence and website and everything. So I've been mostly helping her like talk things through and trying to figure out where she wanted to be and see how she didn't have to just restrict herself, because she still has certain things she works on, like she especially does mindset, resilience, and transformation. It was not transformation, because transformation is something we do in coaching regardless, but I forgot the last part. And she's also not very familiar with a lot of online aspects of things. So it was really like re-explaining, what do we mean by content? Why do we mean by content pillars of what does personal branding really means, except, thinking just fancy graphics or something like that. So with her, it's been a lot of groundwork, and we're hoping that she starts to have a website up and build her LinkedIn later in the summer. So we're really liking that, because she's finishing a certification as well. So we are working in that level.
Awesome. So a lot of different elements come to play with working with you, because you're not just working on one smaller piece, you're working on the whole story. So
pretty much, yes. I can work with a single piece. Like if, for example, for my friends now, the streamer now that we're kind of established the basics of his personal branding and positioning, it's really more a focus on his YouTube channel right now. Really, well, for my other client, it is more overall and like fundamentals all together.
Yeah, because I think, you know, one of the things that most people have a hard time with is actually niching, and then also determining how they want to show up with their branding. So how's their brand a reflection of them and what they're going to be doing? And those two pieces alone can be quite complicated for people to really, what would I say, to really know how tight to go on the niche, or know exactly what their message should be. And sometimes, you know, a lot of people will experiment with different niche and that kind of thing, but using an expert like yourself to help narrow down to that niche, and then to help get the brand so it aligns with it, is really, really important, because that can save you a lot of time to success. So just the first two pieces can really shorten the time to success. And I've seen a lot of people that are struggling with those two things and just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall, I'll say, to just try and get anybody and everything. And that at the same time, they get nobody. So it's really important to understand the value of those two pieces. And then from there to be able to build your content strategy around that. So, you know, Natasha, I think what you're doing is such a valuable service. And then with your background in, you know, your content writing as well as your film's all about storytelling. So to have someone with your background doing this is like incredible, because you know, my son is in film as well, and storytelling is the name of the game, right? It's the name of the game, and it's all about the story flow that makes a difference in his film being successful and not. And so there's a strategy to that. So it's very, very interesting that you bring all of that skill set behind you to be able to help your clients. And so having two clients when you've launched a week ago, that's incredible.
Thank
you.
They
may have been popping in before that, but that's really good, because it also allows us to be able to say, hey, I want to learn more about what you do. Who are you actually working with, so that I can go and just check out their profiles and see what they're doing, because that's a great way for you to just have the testimonials that are live for people to see. Yeah. So that's a huge piece of it, because a lot of people do work that they don't have the testimonials that people can visually go and check out. So tell me about your strategy for your promotions and what you're going to be doing to really get yourself out in the marketplace.
Well, that's I'm currently like mostly active on LinkedIn. So that's something I've been intentionally way more active in networking and sharing value on LinkedIn for the past few months. So that was something that even before I decided to go into coaching, thanks to that light bulb moment, that was something that I've been really intentional in making time every week for that. And so I'm continuing to do that. I have starting to also, it's kind of like finding the balance between, you know, sharing value and also sharing about what we do, because there is, I know there's a lot of things I know, but none of us want to be too salesy, maybe probably, especially if we come from corporate. But at the same time, if you never give direct opportunities to people to know what you can do, then you might just be churning out really valuable content, but they may not really realize what you directly offer if they want to work with you. So it's kind of finding the right balance in that regard, to always provide value, but also don't hesitate to be like, hey, I can help you with XYZ in that regard. So that's really something. And I am trying to launch my newsletter, but as you know, I am having some technical struggles. So this is some backhand that needs to be addressed, but this is another way that I'm hoping to be able to provide more value and share more about my offers with people. And I'm excited to get opportunities like your podcast to be able to talk about what I'm doing and how I can help people. So thank you again for that. And I am also later on this summer hoping to relaunch my YouTube channel with a really strong niching down on content strategy. That's
Nice.
really what I'm hoping to do. And oh, cat number one coming back. So that's where I'm at, I would say, in terms of strategy, and also word of mouth. Like my other client who is local is offering me, like as mentioned, me to other people she knows, is going to introduce me to a few people. So this is also like the word of mouth on top of everything else.
Perfect. Well, I love that piece of it too, because oftentimes we get so involved with the social media and trying to meet strangers to bring into our businesses and forget about the people that we know already, that already know, like, and trust us in our communities. And I think because of what we've been through the last few years, we've sort of gone online and forget that there's people in our community that need our services just as much. And people that know, like I said, know, like, and trust you already. So why not be reaching out to them to ask, have a conversation and just let them know what you're doing. And I think that's one of the things that I've been able to do, to go back out to my community and actually notice that there weren't, you know, women's networking groups and things like that going on anymore in the area. And I'm like, well, then I'll start one. Right. So my friend and I started one back in October, and it's like, if you don't see it happening, do it for yourself. So just taking those actions to get out and meet new people and pull people together as a community in your local area is just as important as working online. When finding people through the different social media platforms that we use. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because so many entrepreneurs avoid talking to the people that they know. Right. And that's
it does happen. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh yeah, I want to have all these people from around the world, but you need to have results to show to be able to attract other people as well. And you need to have a very strong niche and content strategy to be able to attract these people from around the world. So I think it's really important that all the things that you're saying today, and especially about, you know, I'm working with people I already know, but I'm also working with people that I get to work with online to help build their strategy even stronger. Or I'm only niching on YouTube with, you know, the gamer, because that's where he wants to be, and we need to build that strategy. And so the customization that you're already doing for your clients is what any client would want, is to say, I want to come in and I want to create a strategy that I can work with. Because if you're going to be having a podcast, but you don't like being on camera, it might not work as well. Right. You know, so thinking about all those different things, and oftentimes we think, oh, geez, I've got to do all of them. No, you do the things that you have that comfort with. So I appreciate what you're saying today, because you're touching on a lot of those different elements, even from your first few clients that you've brought forward, as far as what they're looking for and how you can now customize for that. So I love that you're already intuitive and doing that, as opposed to saying, okay, everybody gets the same services. So you're customizing right from the gate, and that has huge value, because there's a lot of different content strategy people out there, and they're throwing their strategy out that's the same to everybody. So customization key.
Yeah, I'm a really strong believer in the no one size fits all really exists. And that's also why that's something I do even in my signature program offer, which for me is really understanding a lot of building blocks across content strategy from scratch, but also not forcing people into one box or one strategy and saying you have this and that option, and here are systems for sustainable content creation and distribution that you can apply to the type of content you feel called or comfortable working with. And also why I don't just stick to social media, because as you can tell, I used to be active on way more social media, but now I want to be able to focus on what I have the time, energy, and enjoyment of. And I'm lucky that many of my potential clients can be on LinkedIn. So I recognize that I don't have to show up on TikTok. TikTok can be really good. I'm just happy I don't have to be there.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We can choose which platforms we want to be on, and we can choose who we speak to. Right. And that speaking to that ideal client will attract them from wherever you are. So whatever platform you're comfortable with is where you can build your business. And I think that's a great observation as well. So now tell me a little bit about the sustainable content blueprint that you have, because that's something that I'm really interested in, because, you know, having something that we can sustain and the blueprint that you have, tell me a little bit about that, because there's so much to do on social media.
Yeah. So Sustainable Content Blueprint is my signature 3-month program that I designed based off of my experience, like with storytelling and film studies, as we talked, and also all the content strategy I did more on the corporate level, and even like starting to work with these first couple of clients and kind of having some feedback about what they were looking to accomplish. I find that many fantastic content strategists around here tend to focus on like purely personal branding or really social media strategy, or really like more one piece of the puzzle, which can be extremely useful, because if you already have, you know, enough understanding of how content strategy work, maybe you really need a big program on one of those things. But I'm like, my approach with that is to help people really feel more, have clarity on what their branding, what their mission, what their message, what their audience is, have the fundamentals that help them build their corner of the internet for their website and newsletter, and then understand how they can build their strategy on something like, whether it's 1 or 2 social media platform, maybe they want to go into video or host live events. So it's a 3-phase program that goes from message clarity and content fundamentals, as I say. So it's really like, you know, we were talking about personal branding and really understanding beyond the shiny graphics, and really what are you standing for? What is your positioning? Because let's be honest, none of us really can do something completely brand new. It's a little too late for that in 2023. So it's really, who are you helping and how are you doing that? Like, what's your angle? What's your value proposition, to go back to some corporate jargon for a second? And then really take that down of the target audience, the message and brand guidelines, because I also think that brand guidelines are really important, even for creator, entrepreneurs, and scholars, like the people I help. Because if you have your own brand guidelines with all those assets, all the specific message, not only does it help you have clarity on what type of content you want to create, but it also, if you outsource, you know, you were saying, when we're in business, we may need to hire a freelancer or maybe a team, and having those helps us communicate so much more easily. And that may also include if people, you know, unless somebody like one of my clients comes and is like, I have no content at this point, basically, most people we already have something, like, you know, when they're going to come work with me. So that initial phase also include like a content audit of what they have. You know, then you decide, okay, does this align? Do I keep? Do I refresh? Do I delete? Because that's a really strong step to be able to move forward with that. And then I kind of move into like creating or upgrading like your core online presence, which I consider being your website, your newsletter, which includes like your freebie or lead magnet. What is it that you want to hook people with and start providing regular value, and why would they invite you in their inbox, which is a privilege as well, because in a day of such overwhelm, you need to really provide value. And then it's really like a sequential approach, because I want to build things in order, you know, for people who want to feel confident and create systems that are going to streamline how they create everything. It's like it's clarity from the initial point so you can grow. And then there's the final phase, which is more diversifying your content. So we talk about social media strategy because it's still an important phase. Do you want to go into video or audio content? And what about, you know, hosting live events, which can take a whole lot of shape? Maybe it's virtual, maybe it's hybrid, maybe it's in person. And also one thing that is really important for me is like talking about the power of partnership, collaboration, or even user-generated content, depending on what we do. So that's the building blocks of that 3-month program. Awesome. And really the goal is that people feel clarity and confidence about their content strategy and have systems in place that we're going to go through with the creation process, scheduling, when does it work for them, to come up with idea to create, how can we make the distribution easier for them, and do we do editorial calendars, which is another thing that I tout a lot. So it's really like practical system, clarity, and confidence. And something that can grow with you and your business.
Yeah. Practical system, clarity, and confidence. I love that, because I think that's even just starting with the practical system. I've done so many times where I've tried to have a content schedule and I map it all out, and then 3 days later, I'm not even back into it, right? I'm just doing what comes to me. And it's like, okay, so like the value of having, all of these systems in place can be so much more effective and time saving and stress saving, right? Because oftentimes people will just avoid, like I've been onto some people's pages and I'm like, how come they haven't posted in a month? Right? They've just not been inspired to do anything, or they've just given up on the posting, not thinking that it's working for them, or for whatever reason. And so it's very interesting to for people to have everything up, but yet not have current posts up that actually talk to the people that they're wanting to serve. So I think having something like what you're being able to offer and that 3-month program with sustainability for your content blueprint can be one of the keys. And 3 months is a good time frame to be able to set a habit and then to be able to repeat that. So all you need to do is 4 of those in a year, right? Setting those.
Yeah. But it's also like, it's just one little habit I have. And I was talking with somebody else I'm going to be working with probably this summer, is when you create, because there are 2 things. One thing, I believe that consistency wins the game over quantity. It's just like for myself, I realized 5 posts on LinkedIn is too much for me. So I'm aiming for 3. I'm just like, I know I have the brain power and energy to do 3. So it's better than just having really ups and downs and this lack of consistency. And also one thing I often say to people is, if you're planning and generating ideas, like if you say, oh, I do 3 posts a week, so for a month I need 12 ideas. No, come up with more ideas, because if you have at least 10% more ideas or something like that, or 15 or however, you have a backup if suddenly you're like hit a wall when you need to actually create the post or the video on a specific idea, and you don't have any extra ideas, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. Well, you probably have one of your extra ideas that is going to speak to you.
Awesome. That's a good idea. I think, it can be sometimes if you don't have that consistent strategy, it can be very hard to come up with something when you're trying to do that at the moment, as opposed to already have something that you have in a separate spot, and you can just say, okay, I'm going to pull this one forward today. This fits today. Boom. And off it goes. Excellent. So I really appreciate you sharing all of your greatness today. I know that you're going to have a lot of success in your business. Your background speaks for itself. And the fact that you're not afraid to talk to people, you're already working with clients, you're helping to customize their systems, their processes, and you have such a strong background in storytelling, copywriting, filmmaking, everything that someone would really want today, to be able to help them and being able to be successful in business. And it's a huge, huge piece of our marketing. And, if you look at any of the big companies and the amount of marketing that they do on a daily basis through all the different channels that they have access to. And, as entrepreneurs, we're looking at a much smaller bucket than that. But to be effective in each of those buckets that we choose, where we want to show up, is going to be the key. And that's where Natasha comes in. So I really thank you for sharing today. And is there anything else that you wanted to end on as a different note, a high note for us?
I have a high note. First of all, thank you again for having me over. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much. And I do not have the exact date yet, but as I mentioned, I love helping grad students, and I'm hoping to shortly announce it's going to come out at some point this summer. But I do have a new ebook coming out, which is a practical guide for teaching assistants to help them set up for success whether
wow.
they are brand new or a little more seasoned teaching assistant while attending grad school.
That's awesome. That's going to be a real targeted one. And I think that will really help a lot of people because, you know, I live right next to a university. So I know how much of an opportunity there is for you to be able to work with those students as well and to have the ebook for them. So that's awesome. Excellent. Well, I appreciate you, and we're going to sign off from Sally Speaks and let you know that today is your day to make those changes in your life and to create the life of your choice. So thank you, Natasha, for showing up, and congratulations on the launch of your business, the official launch. The unofficial launch happened in February, but the official launch was last week. And I'm so honored that you chose to come and share that with my audience. Thank you so much, and have a fabulous, fabulous week.